First, you know, the Republican Party has a long history of winning votes by attacking Hollywood celebrities. Whether going after Whoopi Goldberg's infamous Manhattan speech during John Kerry's ill-fated 2004 campaign, or Barbara Streisand's ramblings, or Michael Moore's conspiracy theories, it seems that beating up celebrities wins votes big time for conservative candidates. Maybe that's why the National Republican Party has made Rosie O'Donnell their latest target, frantically trying to turn the blustery Barbara Walters hire into a political weapon. That's right, a political weapon. In a statement released from their Washington headquarters yesterday, the National Republican Committee tied the inane ramblings of Rosie to Democratic leaders. One example given was the Democrats' insistence on the phrase war on terror not being used in legislation, an argument Rosie O'Donnell made on The View last week.
But even you worded a war on terror. I think personally that is propaganda.
Exactly, Washington, thank you!
Okay. I don't like the wording of it like that.
Because it makes people into evil and good.
From The View's words to the Republicans' press release. In yesterday's press release, the RNC pointed out that the Democrats sent out a memo echoing Ms. O'Donnell's sentiments in forbidding the use of the words war of terror in their legislation. A coincidence? Well, Republican leaders think not. So, will Republicans rev up their conservative base by ripping Rosie? Of course they will. The bigger question is, will they succeed in turning her into the latest Hollywood piñata that gets beaten around in return for big political gains? To answer that and other political questions tonight, let's turn to Richard Wolff. He's Newsweek's senior White House correspondent. We have Bob Cohn, author of the book Journalistic Fraud, and Steve Adubato. He's MSNBC media analyst. Richard, before we get to the specifics, let's talk about how this tactic of attacking Hollywood celebrities in the past has paid big dividends for the Republican Party.
Well, it has, but, you know, Rosie O'Donnell is not Barbara Streisand, and that's not just because they sing differently. You know, the world has changed since those culture wars. We were talking about a real war, a war that has not gone well. And in this case, the war on terror as a phrase, by most people's reckoning, has outlived its usefulness when it comes to Iraq. There may be a terrorist element in Iraq, but we're really talking about sectarian violence. So the calculations have changed here. This isn't 2004. It's not 1994.
You know, Bill O'Reilly has also been blasting away at Rosie every night in the show, and he's racking up amazing ratings. Look at O'Reilly's take on Rosie tonight.
Ms. O'Donnell and her radical pals are basically telling the world the USA is a criminal nation and that no matter what provocations are lodged by Iran and others, it will always be America's fault. This is grossly irresponsible and flat out dangerous, but believe me when I tell you that millions of people all over the world are buying this garbage. And Ms. O'Donnell isn't smart enough to realize that while she is demeaning her own country, the one she's hurting most is herself and the company that pays her, ABC. Americans always turn away from haters, always. And that's what Ms. O'Donnell has become.
So, Richard, you've got the Republican National Committee putting out these talking points. You've got Bill O'Reilly going on every night attacking Rosie O'Donnell. Would Democrats say this is proof that the dreaded vast right-wing conspiracy now has Rosie O'Donnell in their sights and are going to keep pounding away to gain political and ratings points?
Well, it's funny hearing Bill O'Reilly talk about the haters not being popular, but put that aside for 1 minute. Look, the RNC and the conservative echo chamber were very, very effective around 2004. That machine basically fell apart through the 2006 cycle. I don't see whether it's Rosie O'Donnell or anyone else that they can really gain traction. I remind you, Joe, we spoke before the 2000 election about the flub joke that John Kerry made. They were trying the old playbook. It didn't work then, and I just don't see this one working now. Why? Because the war is going so badly.
Joe? Steve Adubato, you're a media analyst. Let's look and see how the GOP's attack on Hollywood stars is a political ploy that's worked in their playbook in the past. They've gone after Barbara Streisand. They've gone after Whoopi Goldberg, gone after Michael Moore, and it seemed to work very effectively in 2004. Do you agree with Richard Wolff that was then, this is now, attacks on Rosie just won't work?
I agree to a degree with Richard. Here's the difference with Rosie. She's on every single day on a major network. None of the other people you talked about. Barbara Streisand could say the most outrageous off-the-wall thing in a concert. It gets reported in the New York Times or some other places. It's different now. Not only is Rosie on every day, but you tune YouTube, us, everywhere. You can catch this stuff all over the place. Rosie has a greater opportunity to have a bigger influence on this race because she is so omnipresent. Now, here's the challenge for the Democrats, Joe. They have to. If the Republicans are trying to say, look, Rosie O'Donnell, she represents the Democrats, vote against the Democrats because if you don't want Rosie hanging around the White House, the Democrats have to say, you know, when Rosie O'Donnell talked about building number 7, World Trade Center, building number 7, Joe, she was off the wall, she's irresponsible, we disavow those statements. They have to do it consistently or the Republicans may get some traction here because the Democrats seem too weak. And by the way, Republicans are afraid and don't want to take on Barack Obama. They don't want to talk about Hillary Clinton, and you know they don't want to talk about Elizabeth and John Edwards, so who's the convenient target? Rosie O'Donnell.
You know, Bob Cohn, I want you to listen to a few of Rosie O'Donnell's mad ramblings since she's gotten on ABC and Barbara Walters' The View. Let's roll the tape.
I do believe that it defies physics for the World Trade Center Tower 7, Building 7, which collapsed in on itself. It is impossible for a building to fall the way it fell without explosives being involved. They've been treating them like animals, Elizabeth, not like human beings. They have hoods over their head. They are tortured on a daily basis. It's impossible for some people to believe that the Iranians in any way could ever do anything ethical in any capacity. That they've somehow been dehumanized to the point where they're not people, they're just the enemy. They're terrorists. Don't fear the terrorists. They're mothers and fathers. Someone, I believe, should call for the impeachment of George Bush. You want to know why we'd go into Iran? For the money. Listen. That's why we would do it. And that's corrupt. We're able to get the presidential seal on paper towels, but we still haven't cleaned up New Orleans.